Hello and welcome to the BloodStream podcast, a show serving the greater bleeding disorders community, brought to you by Believe Limited and BloodStream Media, and made possible thanks to our presenting sponsor, Takeda. I'm your patient advocate and host, Patrick James Lynch.
And I am your healthcare advocate, nonprofit nerd, and your other host, Amy Board, reminding you to please speak with a healthcare professional before making any treatment decisions.
On today's show, I'm not going to tell you what the first bullet says. You'll find out very soon. I'm going to hold it back, and we're going to reveal it in just about 2 minutes. But the second bullet talks about gene therapy, a year in review, highlights from an informational year
It was.
in gene therapy, no doubt about it. We've got all that and more on today's episode. Welcome to BloodStream.
Listeners, as always, thank you for joining us today. And if you like what you hear, please subscribe to the BloodStream podcast wherever you get those podcasts. And you can listen to this episode on Facebook even.
You can.
Or YouTube.
Yeah, on YouTube, on Facebook.
If you're at work and you're just kind of bored and you just like to listen to something in the background, we are a delight.
If you want to see the visuals, you can do that.
Right.
You know, so a lot of options for you listeners. And if you are joining us, which you are because you're hearing me now, and if you like what you hear, we would recommend that you give some thanks to our presenting sponsor, Takeda.
Yes.
Yes, that's right, Takeda. Takeda's got this website, bleedingdisorders.com, where you can learn all about Takeda's resources for and commitment to the bleeding disorders community.
Yes.
Takeda believes in a world free of bleeds. Me too. And they are dedicated more than ever in their efforts to offer a wide range of programs and support to help patients throughout their treatment journey, wherever on that journey they may be. You can learn more by simply visiting bleedingdisorders.com. One more time, that's bleedingdisorders.com. And for their founding and ongoing support of the BloodStream podcast, I would just like to say thanks, Takeda.
Thanks, Takeda.
All right, I'll be honest. I don't know why I didn't want to tease that the other part of today's episode.
I thought it was hilarious and just a nice twist.
We're digging into your story a little bit.
I know!
That's what we're doing. But we're going to do gene therapy talk first. But then we're going to get into the Amy Board of it all. That's right. Amy's favorite segment of the year, early contender.
My favorite segment of the year.
But let's start with our gene therapy segment. Let's take a look back. Call it the best of the best. We've heard from patients who took a leap of faith. We've heard from clinicians who guided them, and the researchers who continue to push the boundaries of what's possible. We've also looked at the 5-year data from the HOPE-B end of study analysis, confirming the durable efficacy and safety of gene therapy for hemophilia B. Together, these stories show us that gene therapy isn't just about science. It's about trust. It's about hope. It's about patience, and it's about reimagining the future.
Hannah B., take it away.
Welcome back to Gene Therapy, a whole new world. It's your girl, Hannah. And wow, this season has taken us deep into what gene therapy really means. Not just as a medical breakthrough, but as life-changing reality for people with hemophilia. Throughout this series, we've heard from patients who took leaps of faith, clinicians who guided them, and researchers who were pushing the boundaries of what's possible. As we wrap up this season, we're excited to catch up with our guests, patients like Terrence, Chip, and Greg, and Dominic, family advocates like Brianna, and of course our experts like Dr. Lemons and Dr. Marquet, as they reflect on the long-term impact of gene therapy and look towards the future. Together, these stories really remind us that gene therapy isn't about science. It's about trust. It's about hope. It's about patience and reimagining what's really possible. Before we dive in, here's a quick word from our sponsor.
It's a whole new world gene therapy segment brought to you by CSLBehring and their Hemophilia B gene therapy treatment. To learn more about gene therapy, hear patient stories, and view additional support resources, visit beyondhemb.com or download B Support wherever you get your apps for more information and to manage your treatment journey.
Gene therapy didn't happen overnight. It took decades of research, setbacks, and persistence from scientists, and courage from patients willing to try something new before outcomes were really guaranteed.
When I started in the field, the concept of gene therapy was relatively simple, and there were a lot of promises made that weren't fulfilled. because it turns out there were a lot of technical barriers, some of which at the time it wasn't clear, obvious how to try to study that to get around some of these barriers. But over time, over the last few decades, a number of achievements have been made. We made contributions, many others, that have really pushed the field forward, where it's become something that has gained a lot of respect.
And in November of 2022, that persistence, well, it led to the FDA approval of gene therapy for adult males with hemophilia B. And that really opened a door to many people who have been waiting a lifetime to see this.
It's a personal decision for every patient with hemophilia. And the FDA label is quite interesting. It says that it's a single one-time infusion for adult males with hemophilia B who either are on routine factor IX prophylaxis, or someone who may have had a life-threatening current or historic bleeding episode, or someone who's had repeated serious bleeding episodes over time. It doesn't specify severity of disease, so it doesn't specify you have to be severe or moderate or even mild. It doesn't specify you have to have a specific factor IX baseline level in order to be eligible. So really anyone with hemophilia B, adult male, 18 years of age and older, who is on routine factor IX prophylaxis is potentially eligible to receive this.
Behind every breakthrough is a person who has to decide whether to trust it. And for Terrence, gene therapy wasn't about convenience, it was about trust.
I was on the traditional half-life therapy and the extended half-life therapy. So on the traditional side of things, a day-to-day really depended on how physically active I was going to be that day, or the following days. So you decide, okay, if you're going to be very active, I need to make sure to infuse either beforehand or afterwards. It came in waves often, because throughout my journey I had these random one-off spontaneous bleeds that would often shake my confidence in my therapy. And during my process of convincing myself for gene therapy, I had to look back on those moments and say, okay, is my condition really in check? Is it really managed properly? Because I'm still having these sometimes ridiculous breakthrough bleeds, and it's winding me up in the hospital. So clearly something's not working correctly.
For those whose gene therapy was successful, daily life changed profoundly. No more routine infusions, no more constant calculation of risk. Life could feel freer. And up to this point, we've heard what gene therapy feels like, but for something this big, trust also comes from knowing what happens over time. With something this powerful, hope always comes with a question: does it last? And to answer that question, we're going to turn to Dr. Lemons, who has been following the Hope B trial for years.
So the durability and sustainability of that factor IX level, and the high, mild, normal range for the mean value is quite remarkable. And it's particularly significant since this is a once in your lifetime treatment. It's a single IV infusion in the outpatient setting. And the fact that this has now remained durable and stable consistently over that 4-year period with a very favorable safety profile.
The 5-year Hope B results are more than promising. Bleeds are down, factor IX use is down to 96% levels, and they have stayed steady. Safety remains strong. Even participants with pre-existing antibodies responded well, and most stayed in long-term follow-up. For patients, that means fewer infusions and a more predictable life.
I'm a science nerd through and through, and the first thing that I noticed in the Hope B trial was that the numbers were pretty low involvement-wise, but I had to really think about it. Well, hemophilia as a whole is a rare condition, so finding people to even sign up for these trials might be pretty difficult. So in all, representation was kind of what I was looking for through and through, and that was difficult to get. I'd say that there's plenty of resources out there to reach out. This is not a decision that you have to go through alone, even if you don't have, friends and family that can be your sounding board.
Patients aren't losing their activity. They're not seeing their levels drop from 40% to 30 to 20 to 10, and then going back on prophylaxis at year 4 or 5. The fact that these levels are durable and sustainable and constant without any apparent late effects so far, that patients are doing well with not suffering. There have been no late effects of liver damage or liver toxicity or renal damage. The patients haven't really had any serious adverse events from this clinical trial. So it's really a plus win.
And for patients like Terrence, those numbers aren't just data. They translate into something tangible, more freedom, more confidence, and a life less ruled by infusions.
I almost feel superhuman because this is something unnatural for me. I'm still coming to terms with not needing to infuse every other week. I still have the calendar reminders that says, hey, take your factor. And now I get to, swipe away and say, nope, don't need to do that. Now I don't need to really plan for those rigorous activity days like I used to. I'm an active dancer, so my target joints are absolutely relieved from all of the microbleeds that I was having in the past. And I'm not having microbleeds when I do have very rigorous days. So it's been absolutely delightful.
Terrence's experience is one way gene therapy can change a life. For some families, the decision and its impact experienced from the outside, watching someone you love take that leap. For Brianna, that means seeing her son weigh whether gene therapy was right for him.
It's a big release off your shoulders. Like, you could take a deep breath in, knowing, like, it's one less thing that I don't have to sit here and stress about every day. And then just to be proud of him, because it wasn't easy. Like, and we knew that, like, when he had to make this decision that, yeah, you're a 20-year-old kid in college. We all knew what they do in college. We had this talk. This was one of his concerns when he thought about doing the gene therapy. He was just like, well, what if it doesn't work? And then I can't ever get anything again. And so that was a conversation we had. I said to him, well, we waited 18 years for this. I said, so medicine changes every day. Like, they're constantly working on things in every medical aspect of the world. So who's to say that if this one doesn't work, that in 10, 15 years that there won't be another one?
After I got gene therapy, my doctor thought that I would have to infuse for at least 1 or 2 more weeks. But after we got my first results back, I didn't have to infuse at all. My doctor made the decision to just stop my infusions. So pretty much right off the bat, right after again gene therapy, my infusion stopped, and it's been a year. It's been a year and some change now since I've infused.
Durability doesn't change the data. It changes how patients imagine their future. Some have needle phobias, some don't. But every infusion avoided is one small victory and a part of life that's quietly returned to that patient.
Because I have not had to have factor since then on a regular basis, or any factor, I have over 280 times now had not had to give myself anything. So that's 280 times that back of this hand right here hasn't been poked.
Fewer infusions don't just reduce the burden, they restore parts of life. And even today, patients understand this is part of a longer story. Science is ever evolving. While gene therapy is a one-time treatment, future advances may offer new options for those who've already received it.
I'd say you kind of have to let science play its part. Science is a ever-evolving beast. While, yes, gene therapy is a one-time treatment, and because of the way it works, that means you're not eligible for gene therapy in the future. We're kind of in this science meets fantasy situation. So just like technology, it's going to catch up one day in the future. And hopefully there'll be a treatment option for people who have gone through gene therapy.
This scientific confidence, well, it allows patients and families to plan for the future with a new level of certainty. For some, gene therapy is the culmination of a lifetime of waiting, dreaming, and hoping, a moment that feels almost miraculous.
It just seemed like something out of a dream. And the doctors fully understood what they were doing. And I realized what almost a miracle this was. and the fact that it works so well was just literally something that I never expected in my lifetime to get a chance to enjoy.
And what makes this even more powerful is this isn't the end of a story, it's the beginning of a much bigger one. Lessons learned and successes achieved, well, they are shaping possibilities for other rare and genetic conditions. Gene therapy is no longer just a promise. It's real, it's happening, and it's already changing lives. Through the voices of the patients, the clinicians, and the researchers, we've seen what's possible. And when science is matched with trust and hope, progress, well, it doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen when people believe in something bigger than what exists today. Thank you for being a part of Gene Therapy, A Whole New World. This series, well, it may be ending, but the story of gene therapy is just beginning. And the future it points towards is brighter, bolder, and full of possibilities. Well, as always, it's your girl Hannah, and we're signing off. Take care, y'all.
Well, thank you, Hannah, and thank you to everybody who contributed to not just today's segment, but that segment over the past number of months, the last several months. We appreciate the contributions that you've brought through and all the education that you've brought through for the BloodStream audience.
And to CSLBehring, who has lovingly supported that segment since the beginning. Thank you so much for your continued education about gene therapy and beyond.
Yeah, it's important.
It is.
So I was, thinking about these first couple episodes of the year, Amy, and do you realize this is year 11 of the BloodStream podcast?
That's not true.
2016 was the first year that we produced episodes, and we are now producing episodes in our 11th year.
That is insane.
It is insane. I mean, the fact of the matter is you and I we've been doing this for a while, but even longer than that, we've been doing stuff within the bleeding disorders community. I obviously have hemophilia, but something we haven't really dug into on the show. We reference your experience in Colorado and your background a little bit, but we've never really gotten the story of how you first got involved.
Oh.
So I kind of want to rewind the clock.
Yeah.
And have you share with our listeners, when did you first hear of hemophilia? I'm assuming hemophilia was the first bleeding disorder you heard about.
Yeah. This is so funny. I have told this story of only once of like the very beginning. I've told some other stuff, like when I got into camp and stuff, but I'm like getting goosebumps because the only time that I've told this is to, we had a reunion when we were shooting Shoulders of Giants with our old timers. And it was during a BDC. I think we were in Washington, D.C. And our cast was there. Wayne was there. And we invited other old timers, and I don't know how it came out. I think I was just, addressing the group of just like, I'm so glad you're here or whatever. But I was telling them this story. It was like, started to cry. I was like, oh my God, y'all. But how I got started in this is my family friend, one of my mother's best friends who went to grad school with my dad, Judy Primo, started the 340B pharmacy in Denver, Colorado, at the Denver, Colorado Hemophilia Treatment Center. And she gave me a temp job in between my acting shows. And that job was to take all of their medical files that were in paper in actual files and digitize them. It was like the beginning. And this was like 2003. And so that was my job, is to take all of the files and to scan all of them into the computer.
How'd you do?
Actually, it was terrible. I think she bitched about it a lot. Oh, I don't know can I say that on the podcast? I don't. I hope we get a bleep. I don't know. I think she like complained to my mom about like, oh God, her work ethic. But I was in this tiny room with no windows, reading. And the thing is like, of course it was like, first you just kind of like, ugh, whatever. And then, I started to connect these people that were related to one another. And then, of course, there were so many newspaper clippings of obituaries and these children, in the paper who had died of AIDS. And then you connect like, oh my God, this is this person's uncle. Oh my gosh, this is this, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like just reading these stories, and I was young and dumb and an actor, so it didn't I didn't feel quote unquote changed then. It was just like a sponge absorbing. And, I was a temp at the pharmacy for years and years before I really started to get involved. And at that point, I had decided to quit acting regionally, so stop traveling around, and really made Denver my home. And Judy at the pharmacy gave me more of a regular job, which was really great. I could still, do shows and then come back and help. And I this was back in the day. Patrick, I wonder how old you were. This was in the inhibitor days, and they were just awful. They were life-threatening. They were awful. They were, insurance caps, parents, considering getting divorced so one person could go on Medicaid for their child. These were horrible days. And I made a friend with Thomas Wilkes. He must have been 6 or 7 at the time. And he had the most gnarly inhibitor. And he didn't talk very much. And he had an older sister and a younger sister who were the best, just the best. And I started hanging out with them when they came into the clinic. And it just became a thing. And I would either hang with his sisters while Thomas was, getting his infusion or getting, looked at or something. Or I would hang out with all 3 of them while their mom was, busying around. Their mom was Sandra Wilkes, of course, who's another bleeding disorder luminary, worked at HFA. She's wonderful. And after some time, Sandra let me babysit them so they could actually go out, because I knew what to look for. I knew to call Sue Garrity. I wouldn't mess around. I would just call Sue. So she wasn't worried about it. And, oh man, that's how I got started.
So how did that transition you into being involved with camp?
Well, they bullied me into it. They Judy and the program director of the clinic, Brenda Risky, came in and they were like, we think you should do summer camp. And we would like for you our teenage program is not really working. And we would like for you to completely redo our leadership program and to do it kind of like the Texas camp is doing. So I was sent down to the Texas camp. And that's where I really drank the Kool-Aid. It was really powerful. And I think, and I tell this story all the time because I do not have hemophilia, obviously. My mother deals with chronic illness, but not rare disease chronic illness. So she has acquired it throughout her life. So we don't have direct connection and lived experience, if you will. And it's so funny when you're not of that world and then you go into that world, what clicks for you. And we were at summer camp and I was with a teenager. So there were 17 boys in that leadership program. Looking back on it, it's dear God, there were 17 dudes, sweaty dudes. And they were in this little education session in the middle of camp. And their nurse was Madeline Cantini. Did you ever meet Madeline Cantini?
I don't think so.
She was the Texas version of Sue. She was she was an old school hemophilia nurse. And she was giving a presentation about something. And she said, she was talking about bleeds. And she was like, when you bang your elbow on a table and you just think it's going to be this massive problem and you're just waiting for it, you're just waiting for the bleed to happen. You're waiting for the pain and nothing happens. And then you lightly kick your leg on a locker one day and you think nothing of it. And it just becomes this massive problem. And 17 heads that were kind of bored, they were all 17 heads nodded up and down. And I remember being that is so different from my experience. This is, you think about it all the time. You're managing something all the time. And when you're 17, you have hormones, you're thinking about girls, you're thinking about sports, you're thinking about college, you're thinking about money, and you're thinking about jobs, and you're thinking about how parents, and you're thinking about siblings. And then you have this overarching thing. I don't know. I was okay, I will do whatever. I will make these kids laugh. I will make them feel normal. I will do anything in my in my power to make them be like, no, you're so good. You're good. I was hooked, man.
Wow.
Hooked.
So was it a no-brainer when the executive director role opened up that you would apply, or was there, I mean, at some point you had to decide too, like professionally, I'm not doing the art track anymore. I'm doing this other track. What was that move?
The art track actually happened kind of after that first summer camp. I did a big show right after that summer camp, like a big, like To Dream. It was like a big role. And I kind of, after that, was like, I'm good. It's like, I don't know. I was ready to do, I was 28, I think, and I was just ready to do something more with my life. And all the choices that I had to, like, you know, become a better actor or to become a more well-rounded actor, I just wasn't interested in. Nothing interested me, which, I don't know. I was just kind of like, okay, I think I've done this for a little bit. And I put all of my eggs kind of in, like, the hemophilia basket. Even though it wasn't a full-time job, I kind of cobbled together jobs for years and years. And then when the chapter job came up, I had my predecessor at the Colorado chapter was she was not involved in the community, but she was a nonprofit maven. You know, she was really a part of that nonprofit group in Colorado of governance leaders, and she had gone to school. She had gotten her master's in nonprofit management, and it kind of opened my eyes to, like, a different type of business structure where you fundraise for something that you believe in. And I was like, I could do that. I want to do that. So I went back to grad school to get my degree, not thinking it would have anything to do with hemophilia. I thought I would help her program-wise, which what I was doing. I was running summer camp, and I was like, this is perfect. I'll have all this time to go back to school, and then I'll be able to go out into the world and, like, find a job. And, like, 3 months into going to school, she quit that job, and Dawn Rodolini, precious Dawn Rodolini, took me aside at the Nacho Camp Conference in Arizona, and she was like, you should probably do this. And so it was Dawn Rodolini. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. She goes, nobody does. You'll be fine.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about Dawn. I didn't know
it was Dawn.
that she had such a directional role in your choice.
She really did.
Wow.
Yeah, she really did.
Is there ever a time, do you ever find yourself longing for, not necessarily like the actor life, but something that is not, like, obviously we get to work in more disease and health communities than just bleeding disorders. So there's, like, that, I think, freshens things up, at least it does for me. But do you ever find yourself kind of wondering if you hadn't taken this advocate path, where you would have landed?
I think, this is Looney Tunes, but my path shifted way earlier than that, I think. When I graduated from college, undergrad, I had a musical theater degree, and I was, like, primed, to, like, to this is showbiz, baby, really do it. And I got randomly, it's so funny because it's the one audition I bombed. It's so funny. I bombed this audition. I remember leaving being like, I think I got that job. That's crazy. I got a job. I had, like, an agent from my, senior showcase that was like, do this, and then maybe I'll sign you. And the first thing was to get, a non-union tour. And I got a non-union tour, and it was a role, and I turned it down because it was $200 a week, and I was already in debt from living in New York, and I stayed home, and I was newly dating this dude that I dated for, like, 3 months, and I was like, I am making my value set that I want to, kind of, like, do this regionally. I don't want to do it big, and I think that's where I made the decision.
Interesting.
Or, like, that's where I look at that as, like, the crossroads of, like, I could have just, thrown everything to the wind and just, like, gone full tilt career. I don't know. I don't have regrets about it, but I'm very aware that, like, that was a decision I made. And if I would have made a different decision, it would have been completely different.
Yeah, everything would be different.
It would be completely different.
I think about that too with my own decisions along the way. And
do you?
Yeah, of course.
What's your biggest one?
The biggest thing that I think about is how much of a role fear may have played in my deciding to pursue what's become Believe Limited. But like fear that I wasn't either good enough as an actor, or I wouldn't be able to hack it long enough, or I'd get exposed for being, imposter syndrome stuff.
Yes.
Like I look back and wonder, I know the positive motivated reasons that I said, I want to devote myself to this and I'm running full speed in this direction. But there is a part of me that, I guess let me put it this way. There's a part of me that acknowledges that fear was present.
Yes.
And I guess I wonder how I would have wrestled with that fear had I not made the choice I did.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a choice I made out of fear, but it kind of circumvented it.
No, totally.
And I sometimes look back, not like, oh, you copped out. Like, you don't cop out of being an actor by becoming an entrepreneur. Like, that's not the safe route. That doesn't make any sense. But I do wonder how I would have handled that fear in the long run.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I always knew underneath that I had limits as an actor, as a singer especially. I couldn't belt past like a certain note, and in order to become like a leading lady, you have to, and I never could. And I don't think God granted me that. I tried. I classically trained for years and years to do it. I mean, you have to do. It was the next note up. It wasn't the next note up. Away. It wasn't that even far, but you have to. And I never could. And that wasn't present in any of my decisions. But now looking back, I'm like, that makes sense. I mean, I do have a handful of roles I would love to do, and I can't sing them. I can't. I can sing 95% of the role.
That's frustrating almost.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And like I don't know, maybe that was a cop out to like not try or not take voice lessons to try to do it or whatever. I don't know. I just didn't. I don't know. I'm super glad I'm not. I don't know if you are. I don't have any desire to. Yeah.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I'll share this one quick story before we get out of here because I don't know when else it would ever be organic to share this story. But speaking of New York days, I was once in an off-Broadway play understudying a few roles, and the opening weekend of that show, I got an audition for a new Edward Albee play. Edward Albee, now deceased writer of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and just one of the legends of American playwriting. And I get the sides, and it's like 25 pages of single-spaced like monologues that they're asking for this audition in 2 days. And I'm in the middle of trying to make sure I'm totally off book and totally blocked for 3 roles and a 5-hander.
Yes.
So I was like, I'm going to do my best. And I read that it was a pre-screen. So I thought it was with the casting director, who I knew well, in her office, and was okay, you see where this is going. So I read the play quickly. I read the sides quickly. And I went in with the attitude of like, I'm just going to give it what I got. I can only do what I can do.
Right.
I walk into the audition room, and immediately out of my periphery, I can tell that there are 2, if not 3, 8-foot-long tables set up, and there's got to be a dozen people behind the chairs. And immediately, before I process who any one of those people are, I was like, I've screwed up.
Oh my God.
Because it was clear, this is not a pre-read. This is an audition. And so I'm going down. This is Carl. Hello, Carl, shaking his hand. This is Donna. Hello, Donna, shaking Donna's hand. Going down. This is Edward.
Oh.
I'm shaking Edward Albee's hand.
Oh my God.
And I then have about 15 feet to where I'm going to walk and turn around in front of the group to just like gather myself and be like, all right, man, do your best. Because if there was ever an audition I would have liked to have been better prepared for, it was in front of Edward Albee.
Every theater kid is gasping right now.
But what was amazing was after the first line or two, I got a laugh. I got a legit laugh in the room. And I could tell, like, something's clicking.
Yeah.
And I was on that wave, and I was getting reactions, and it went well, and I got out of there.
Yeah.
And the casting director told me later that when I left, Edward turned to her and said, "Did he read the script?" And she goes, I said, "Edward, I wasn't with him. He's responsible. I auditioned him a lot. I imagine he did, but I don't know." And she goes, he nodded and said, "I couldn't tell if he read the script or it was just a damn good guess." And that is the best compliment I've ever gotten as an actor.
Oh my God.
So there you have it. That's my Edward Albee story.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I can't believe you never told me that story. Why would you have ever told me that story?
It doesn't have a great reason to come up.
It never has a great reason to come
It
up.
doesn't. But here we are on this special episode of the BloodStream podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so there you have it, folks. Probably not what you were expecting to hear from today's episode.
But fun, hopefully fun.
And you know, you mentioned you mentioned Dawn, you mentioned Sanji, you mentioned some other folks in there too. You know, every advocate has a story. Like no one just at 3 was like, one day I'm going to be an advocate. Like all of us are just doing our life and then things happen and we make choices.
Yes.
So thank you, Amy, for letting your story be part of today's show. And I heard things I've never heard before. I know people listening learned things that they didn't know about you. So thank you for being willing to share.
Absolutely. And it's I never get a chance to share it. You know, it's just like rare. It's, you know, it's a thing. And it's deeply entrenched how much I love this community, you know, and shows. I know you all know that. I feel it every time you guys come up and everything. I love y'all. This is great.
Well, I think that love is reciprocated. So thank you, Amy. And thanks again to everybody who participated in the gene therapy segment. I want to thank our presenting sponsor, Takeda, bleedingdisorders.com for more. And thanks, of course, to CSLBehring for their support of the gene therapy segment. We could not produce the BloodStream podcast without you, and we are grateful for your support.
Yes.
Bordeaux, next episode comes out February 13th. What can the listeners expect to hear then?
Finally, we get an Ash highlight reel. Everybody's been waiting for it. I know you guys have been like, what happened at Ash? I can tell my comments have been flooded. I'm kidding. No one has asked me about Ash. But anyway, obviously, you know, fantastic stuff always comes out at the end of the year. This is the, what does it stand for? American Society of Hematology.
Yep.
And we're going to have Dr. Ashcut John, who's always a hoot.
Yes.
Yeah, so anyway, we'll get Ash highlights so you can hear all the good stuff.
Nice. All right, well, that'll be on the next one. Be sure to subscribe to the BloodStream podcast wherever you listen to have that next episode delivered to you the moment it goes live.
And loyal listeners, as always, email us. Keep that in at mailbag@bloodstreammedia.com to inquire about all of our casting opportunities and also any stories you would like to share on the podcast, any guests you would like to share, topics you're interested in, please do that. And you can find me and PJL on social media as well.
I am your host, Patrick James Lynch.
And I'm your other host, Amy Board.
And until next time, take self-care of yourself. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.